Hello, I'm Stuart Crainer. Welcome to our series of monthly webinars Inside Ecosystems, brought to you by the Business Ecosystem Alliance. Our aim at the Alliance is to further knowledge of the ideas and best practice behind business ecosystems. With this objective in mind, I'm delighted that our guests today are Ank van Wylick, Camal Handor, and Steffie Laak, the founders of 42 Collective, a cooperative which aims to create breakthroughs by building innovative collaborative ecosystems. Ank is the originator of the concepts behind 42 Collective. Her career is centered around innovation. She worked as a partner at PA, where she helped many financial institutions to become Fintech ready 15 years ago. She built the innovation practice at KPMG in the Netherlands, where she also successfully built global open innovation ecosystems at a number of organizations. Steffie's experience is based on being a corporate innovation leader at banks such as ING and RaboBank. She also started and led her own fintech company, GroupPay. Camal is a strategist with an aptitude for future-proofing companies, especially in the life science and chemical sector, which he did for companies like Johnson & Johnson, AstraZeneca, and DSM, who's formerly a KPMG partner. All three have combined their wisdom and insights and knowledge and field experience into 42 Collective. And they're convinced that ecosystems will play a crucial role in solving the many hairy challenges facing societies as well as organizations. We are delighted to have them here to explain their unique perspective on ecosystems. So Ank, Camal, and Steffie, welcome, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Stuart. We are excited to be invited for this webinar. We are a big fan of Business Ecosystems Alliance, and we are gulping in all the different points of view we have seen in the last series of webinars. This webinar will be brought to you in a more interactive style. So the first 20 minutes or so, I will ask questions to Ank and Steffie, co-founders, and we have some material to share with you. And after 20 minutes, I will hand over to Stuart, and we can collectively answer the questions coming from the audience. So to start off the presentation. So as Stuart were mentioning, we are 42 Collective. We are a newly found organization. You can find us on 42collective.com. To describe 42 Collective, the following key phrases. Let me see, it doesn't exactly do what I want. I think I know where the challenge is. Okay, to describe 42 Collective, there are a couple of key phrases. So why have we initiated ourselves? We want to solve societal B-hacks. For the one who haven't been in management lingo for the last 25 years as the founders, B-hack stands for big, hairy, audacious goals. What we like to do is build ecosystems. That's why we also found, of course, the Business Ecosystem Alliance. And we do this for large, but also larger companies. More about it in a minute. And our style is very much to do it as a collective, and of course, as soon as possible. I know this sounds a little bit like we are on 10,000 feet, but during this webinar, we will land the plane. So please hang in there. Let's first start with the title of the webinar. So Ank, could you tell us why we have chosen the title Innovation Ecosystems Thrive by Deals and Perish by Theater?
Unmute. Well, every respectable organization is currently attending, building, orchestrating some kind of innovation ecosystem in order to solve complex business challenges. And accelerating the rate of discovering innovative solutions is paramount. But we increasingly hear innovators with front-running organizations saying that there's too much ecosystem theater, actually, and not enough action or impact. Yeah, and on one hand, we see the need for acceleration in innovation, which has never been greater than today. For instance, look at UN Sustainability Development Goals. Well, there's so many solutions out there being provided by companies, not only startups, by the way, but also scale-ups and other companies, but which are, well, they don't find the right partners to help them grow. And that's actually why we as 42 Collective are concerned that the benefits of innovation ecosystems will be at risk if theater prevails. It's more important to focus on creating deals, and deals because deals really provide the energy and the momentum needed to keep ecosystems thriving. So then they can achieve the desired acceleration of innovation.
Yeah, thank you, Ank. And that's, of course, why we are very happy to be here and share our ideas on that. So, Ank, could you first explain the audience why we have created 42 Collective, although you gave something away in this small intro?
Yeah, you know, like everywhere, our new venture is driven by ambition and frustration. Ambition because we know that the world really can benefit from creating breakthroughs together. So achieving ambition goals as a collective. And frustration because it's sometimes horrible to see how slow and bad ecosystem management is performed. So really, there are quite a few people who don't get that ecosystems is about deal. So whenever it's called an ecosystem, you know, you have different words for it. Ecosystem, network, partnership, consortium. It doesn't really matter for us, but we want to see concrete results. Actually, it's about deal, stupid. So that's why we called this webinar this way. And to come out to our ambition, to set up this venture, we need, well, we really believe we need more and faster breakthroughs in many areas. In agriculture, in plastic, in deep tech areas like batteries or photonics. There are already solutions for all these issues. You need to find them and strike deals with them as fast as possible. Well, we have seen what the power of collaborative innovation can do. Bringing people together, bringing knowledge together, for example, in an initiative, Imagine Chemistry, a real great collaboration to create breakthroughs in chemistry, but also Reimagine Football, a joint collaboration in football, while many, many more, so many examples. We can't do all the talking about it today, but the world really needs more and more effective collaborations, bringing people together to get it and act, and we create a positive movement. That's also what we want to do with you in the audience. So, and that's why we call ourselves an ecosystem builder, actually a faster ecosystem builder. We accelerate the positive results we are looking for.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ank. It's very clear. So I remember clearly also some frustrations we shared when we started it up, especially with the solution providers, as you just mentioned. They can be startup scale-ups, but also large institutions, or as well with the corporate side. Let's start with the challenges for example, with the solution providers like scale-ups. Could you tell a bit more about those?
Yeah, sure. So we discussed our organizations with great solutions somewhere in the world. Great solutions, but what is the issue for them? To sell their solutions. The buying processes for innovative solutions are super slow. And above all, innovative firms are not so strong in selling. Research actually shows that the biggest barrier for scale-ups is the lack of market access. 2/3 of scale-ups see market access as the biggest issue. They are not looking for an innovation challenge with a small money prize. They need sales, so they need deals. And more deals for innovative companies with more sustainability solution results in more positive sustainability impact.
Yeah, absolutely. And we remember the examples of the scientists looking only in Erlenmeyers, not really wanting to or capable of selling their ideas properly. It's a great example. So, Steffie, so Ank explained the situation at the challenge, the solution provider side. Could you tell us what the challenges are on the corporate side?
Yeah, sure, my pleasure. So what we see as a challenge around corporates and ecosystems is there's a certain fatigue around the topic of innovation. It can be about open innovation as well as innovation ecosystems for that matter. And we think this is a dangerous trend because collaboration in ecosystems is the solution to not only solve their daily business challenges, but also to, as mentioned, solve the wicked and the hairy, the value chain problems, or even the societal problems of today. So ecosystems are the engine behind striking deals for impact. That's our belief. So let us consider what happens if there are no deals in the ecosystem to better understand the importance of deals. So think, for instance, of a societal ecosystem, one that brings together stakeholders around pressing challenges like, for instance, biodiversity or future mobility. At the setup of an ecosystem like this, everyone is energized, there's C-level sponsorship, the movers and shakers are connected with this topic, and strong ambitions do take shape. A lot of pledges are made. We are a bit allergic to pledges as well, because then there are action points and numerous reports and videos and a lot of media attention. And then all participants expect the ecosystem to maybe magically provide breakthroughs. But what we see is that there isn't enough effort to collaborate on the real content. So the ecosystem, or the so-called ecosystem, then fails to deliver on tangible results. And you can already predict the next phase. To keep the ecosystem alive, maybe there's another event and another report. And then enthusiasm will start to cool, attendance drops, less and less communication, and even the ecosystem website becomes inactive in the end. So this is one kind of fatigue within value chain ecosystems, but there's also another fatigue that I want to demonstrate. It's more with the corporate-led ecosystems. So they are not finding enough potential needle-moving solutions in the end. Solutions that solve their core business challenges. Because corporates, when wanting to start this kind of ecosystem, they start scouting, they start flying around the world, visit demo days, go to Silicon Valley, go to startup festivals and deep dive startup databases. And then again, also these so-called ecosystems fail to deliver tangible results fast enough. And I think the take of 42C on this is that they also lack focus on collaboration and lack the impact of multiple deal-making flows. So where does it go wrong? Corporate-led ecosystem simply do not attract enough of the right solution providers. And why is that? I think Ank mentioned some of those points already. To sign up or submit requires a lot of time and effort. IP is being exposed, the price for the submission, the money price often isn't that relevant, and only a small portion of the sought-out startups and scale-ups, usually 2 to 3%, win that prize. All in all, low success rate, too low of a success rate, so why bother? And I think there you have the fatigue of corporate participants involved. And so they have a lesser belief that ecosystem innovation is the way to create breakthroughs as a collective. So hopefully that answered your questions, Camal.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steffie. And I think a lot of people in the audience probably will recognize what you have said or have experienced some of those sessions, ecosystems. So in your answer, you also mentioned 2 types of ecosystems for the viewers who were carefully listening. So maybe it's a good point at this moment to explain how we as 42 Collective look at ecosystem, what ecosystems we classify. So let me bring up this picture. So we see 4 types of ecosystems, in which we all had some kind of experience. So, and let me explain this concept with the example of cement industry in back of our mind. And the reason is this is one of the areas where we as 42 Collective are talking directly with a couple of companies, and they have a massive challenge because in the whole climate change challenge, 8% of the carbon emission is caused by this sector. And as this sector didn't have the awareness as it had, for example, the energy sector, there's much less innovation for replacement products than, for example, a sector called energy, where we've seen a lot of innovations in solar, wind, biomass, etc. This is not the case in cement. So what are they currently doing and what are we discussing? Well, let me start with the first one, the internal ecosystem. Also, that is an ecosystem. And what they basically do is they will source and look inside of their company to find solutions, ideas, best practices. that can help them forward. And especially in a large company, this can be very beneficial to share these type of insights. What you will see is that in the McKinsey Horizon innovation thinking, these are usually the Horizon 1 type of innovation, more the, let's say, optimization type of solutions. Now, if we go to the second one, which is the external ecosystem, this is much more the original idea of Chessborough, where we're talking here about open innovation. By creating ecosystems with an attempt to find solutions outside of the cement company, which is very great and it can be very successful. Yet one of the biggest challenges that we have seen also when we constructed these type of ecosystems is that if you have been brought up in the cement industry, you walk, you talk, and you think cement. So it's very hard to escape from this mental model, and you tend to find solutions that fit your model, of course. Secondly, what we think is that, and this is more our purpose-driven characteristic, the challenges are so immense for this industry, and it's very hard for them to look at solutions and to find out whether they are proper for them. Like, for example, carbon capture system, alternative building materials, hydrogen energy. So therefore, we as 42 Clever are very enthusiastic about the next two type of ecosystems, and which is the value chain and the society. Now, let's look at the value chain, which is, to be just very clear, much wider than just the supply chain ecosystem, is innovating collectively with companies from, let's say, other sectors. So you could think, for example, like energy, software, alternative building materials. This time you will then also attract innovation, which could lead to not only new operating and business models, but also to new mental models towards cement. And this could provide opportunities for cement companies to leapfrog and find new solutions for constructions versus optimizing the current product and processes. And finally, we identify the societal ecosystems, which entail also the involvement of governmental and all other stakeholders to address challenges from a 360 societal perspective. One can imagine that this creates also innovation beyond business model, so much more towards also the policy, social innovation, different type of behaviors, etc. So this is the sort of sketching the landscape, but how do you really get them to life? Because we also want to make it as pragmatic and realistic as possible. So, Steffie, could you explain what we mean with breakthrough runs and how we make these ecosystems come alive and how we tackle deals in these breakthrough runs?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so let me first start with the end goal in mind. The breakthrough runs are the water flow of an ecosystem. So like a river, they are the main artery, or they are lifelines, so to speak. Because a breakthrough run provides as many as possible qualified solution providers to create as many deals as possible for maximum impact. A breakthrough run delivers ecosystem members in any type of ecosystem as Camal has described, members to co-create, learn and solve challenges with now or in the near future. And we like to say to create collective breakthroughs. So let me get back to what a breakthrough run really is. For us, it's a collaborative and open way to attract the best solution providers from anywhere in the world to solve a challenge by collaboration and thus create a much needed breakthrough. And I think I need to stress, and because we have to explain this over and over again, so no worry, a breakthrough run is not the same as running a challenge, because we see many varieties of challenges. They call it moonshots, scouting sessions, hackathons, pitching events, and we also see the post-box, send me your greatest solution type of challenges. But breakthrough runs should be really different. They should be about attracting and not scouting. They should be about collaboration, not pitching. They should be about qualified solution providers. That does not equal startup rejuvenation. So starting a breakthrough run means formulating a core issue you need to solve and then make your wish for breakthrough known to the world. You need to open up for all to hear. This way you attract known as well as unknown solution providers. And the additional benefit is that parties that come to you are intrinsically motivated to really connect with you. And I think good to also stress is another component of a breakthrough run, the collaborative part of it. In truth, I mean, this is the most important part. Ank will go deeper into this matter a little bit later on, but we don't believe in pitching events. So you heard me before. The essence of ecosystem partners is getting to know each other really well, but on the issue at hand. No distraction from flashy presentations, but we mean hardcore collaboration in a pressure cooker style. Expert to expert, involving real people, those that are involved in the day-to-day core business activities. And if you do it like this, we have shown and we have seen that one can attract multiple solution providers. And not only startups are seen as solution providers, Camal already hinted to that, but we see scale-ups, large corporates, institute, university, anyone who has a fitting idea, solution that as a solution provider. So now you can see that our breakthrough runs deliver a constant influx of new perspective and opportunities and are the basis of deal flow. More impact, simple as that. Maybe a short thing, so how companies gain from it. Multiple ways. It shortens their own time to market, diversifies risks, develops a collaborative culture, and in total, building business resilience. Next to that, also, I think a very big issue is that they build quite a strong brand presence and employee satisfaction rises. But foremost, offering solutions to wicked problems, especially if you look at the value chain ecosystem, as we explained before, and creating collective breakthroughs via deals. Then we have some, I think, benefits on the solution providers as well. Also mentioned maybe before, gaining easier or new market access, accelerating product development by having access to more and exclusive knowledge, having access to production capabilities, really important, as the same goes for facilities. And sealing the deal, the legal fulfillment of it all. I think that answers your question, Camal.
Yeah, thank you very much, Steffi. So to summarize, a breakthrough run is definitely creating a lot of deal flow, and it keeps the ecosystem alive. And you mentioned a couple of great advantages. So if we've been talking a lot about creating a deals, and many people do associate it with M&A, merger and acquisition. And could you tell us more what we really mean with a deal?
Yes. Well, ecosystems can only live if there are continued activities. And when people make concrete agreements on what they're going to do together, they make it very tangible. We call those agreements deals. Well, deal flow is vital to keep the ecosystem alive. You can see deal flow described as the water flow, as Steffi actually just did. By deal, we mean the formalization of cooperation, which can be a sourcing agreement, a co-development agreement, actually any form of collaboration and partnerships, also even an investment deal. So in all these agreements, both parties benefit, the solution providers and the organization seeking a solution. Well, I mentioned that the buying process of innovative solutions is quite often slow. Maybe I should give an example. Maybe let's focus on a startup, for instance, who met someone in a corporate. They had a great meeting. And what happens? What's the action following the meeting? Actually, someone says, oh, you should speak to my colleague. And after the following meeting, meet the next colleague and the next one and the next one. Well, and if the deal will be closed after all, it takes, at least 9 to 12 months. The startup by that time is really totally exhausted and wonders, whether they spent their time right. This has a very high risk that somewhere during this process, the energy and enthusiasm leaks away. Things stops and no deal, no action. That's a pity.
Yeah, thank you very much. So a very clear answer on deal. So they are partnership, and I think this example probably resonates with a lot of startups, which is also then a pity for, of course, the corporates, as they cannot embark on these great solutions. So designing the ecosystem with deal flow in mind, that sounds logical. However, what are the critical success factors to think about? Ank.
Yeah. Let me focus on four critical success factors. Well, first one is a joint vision of success. An ecosystem can only function well if there's a decent understanding of the position of the involved parties. Spend enough time to define a joint vision of success. So how important is the ecosystem, for instance, for the goals of each of the contracting parties? Is there a balance between what each can gain or has to invest? Who takes the risks? How is the governance work? The joint vision of success asks for a different approach than just adding the wishes of the individual parties. Well, the second critical success factor is actually the expert-to-expert interaction. Steffie mentioned it already. We've seen that in theater-based innovation initiatives, for instance, quite a few junior consultants who make shortlists, actually based on what? So words on websites or whatever. So think about you. You just developed a great innovative solution. You're joined such an initiative, and then a junior just decides on a couple of words that you're not interesting enough to move on. And don't get me wrong here, they're great juniors, but experts talking to experts just leads to improved assessments and therefore better assessments in the process from long list to short list. So of course you have to ensure that the experts are supported well, because they're always lacking of time. So also here the design of the process is important so that they can spend their time efficiently. Then the third thing to mention is contracting. Well, contracting innovation is always about things that you need to find out in due time. It's about new things that aren't clear yet. So that feels a bit like talking about actually the conditions of a future marriage after the first few dates. So start with designing the principles of the collaboration. And you really need a contract that oozes collaboration and builds trust. Respect ownership, for example, for IP. And don't get stuck here. Key objectives have to be put central. And it's very important to describe, for instance, the uncertainties and assumptions of those, rather than just working out all the contracts. And finally, don't forget about this, the style of engagement. Well, we prefer the style of love, peace, and happiness over sex, drug, and rock and roll. Well, sex, drug, and rock and roll is a lot of buzz, but maybe not necessarily enough understanding and click. So with only buzz, solution providers will no longer join. They will make an estimation of their chances of success. Well, I just described these 4 principles, and I personally applied all these principles in every open innovation engagement that we worked on. So I mentioned already the Johan Cruyff Arena, was working there, Reimagine Football, great initiative, but also in chemistry, the food industry, painting, coatings, financial sector, building and construction, whatever. It's we can't just talk about this. So let me just then summarize. We need to create more deals, design them better. We need to operate them faster, and then we can realize much more ambitions, and also with more resilience and more impact. That is super critical.
Yeah, thank you, Ank. And the way you enthusiastically tell it, it always makes it look and feel much better. And maybe to add to this one, what I do also like about the approach is, of course, the fact that it builds a lot of trust, not only with the solution providers of the critical success factors you just mentioned, but also with the corporates. It's all about trust building. So thank you, Ank and Steffie. We are at the end of our story. So we're going to open up for questions. And of course, if you do want to contact us, then again, here are our credentials. And we're very much looking for people who want to join this type of movement. Thank you very much. Stuart, over to you.
Thank you, Ank. Thank you, Steffie, and thank you, Camal. It seems to me you're inventing a new language for ecosystems, breakthrough runs, deal flow. And to go back to what you were saying about deals, it seems a deal is some sort of shared agreement before you set out. And I think traditionally, ecosystems have been approached in a more organic way, that people as kind of a loose affiliation, and there often isn't really a shared agreement at all. Is that a correct understanding? You're kind of bringing more professional rigor to the organization of ecosystems at the starting point. So if you get the agreed principles at the start, then you say that then the ecosystem will evolve happily and healthily.
Yeah, that's a good point you're making, Stuart. And there's definitely a certain amount of structure that we propose. But in that structure, we do leave a lot of room for serendipity to prevail. But not totally. You always need to have some guidance. And maybe, Ank, you can share a bit more of your experience of contracting versus, leaving it a bit organically.
Well, actually, I do agree with your point, Stuart. I think systems are also developing now. So what you really see are that we get more ecosystems. And we experiment with ecosystems. And when people started working on ecosystems, it was maybe a more like, okay, let's just try and see how things go. And with the impact that we just described, without the decent results, the energy faded away. So what we actually believe is, can we bring those things together, and therefore a bit more rigor? And that's actually what we've applied in all these examples that we just mentioned. Yeah, I agree.
And please send in your questions. We've got people joining from the UAE, Switzerland, Poland, the UK, Belgium. There's a point from Mohammed Nasser, who's in the UAE, about fatigue. And I think Steffie raised the point that organizations suffer from innovation fatigue. And it just strikes me as being odd, really, that organizations can be fatigued by innovation. I mean, it's like being tired of Paris, isn't it? And you might as well stop living if you're tired of Paris. And the same way, if you're tired of innovation, you might as well stop existing as an organization. It's amazing that exists, isn't it?
Yeah, I totally agree. But I think the fatigue is because innovation was a long time organized around stuff that wasn't really core business issues, as I have seen it at corporates. And so if it's not really touching your core business, then at the end, it's just a playground. And also my kids, I have 3. I mean, they get tired of a playground after a while. If it doesn't bring them the joy that they are looking for. So I think that's what's happening. And now if you see if it gets more serious, and also the rigor that you mentioned before, more serious, more to the core challenges. Also the awareness that the challenges that you're facing, you cannot solve alone as a company. Then it gets really serious. And if it gets really serious, you need a structure and you need to really organize for itself. And then I think the fatigue will be gone. But as long as you look at it as a playground, oh, well, there are a lot of other playgrounds as well to go to and have fun.
And maybe to add to that, so ecosystems are very vulnerable and brittle systems based on a lot of trust. So our point is not that there will be fatigue around innovation, but there will be fatigue around ecosystems. And we think with all the challenges that we face at this moment, you need ecosystems to solve all these problems. So our concern is more the fatigue with decision makers around ecosystems, that they will perceive it as innovation shows instead of one of the key levers to solve all the challenges we have ahead. Yeah.
It's kind of an interesting strand through your arguments about the longevity of ecosystems, because it seems to me that what you're saying, you talked about movements, and that there should be kind of built-in agreement about the longevity of ecosystems, how long they're going to last. If they've got clear objectives, then presumably once the objectives are reached, the ecosystem dissolves or merges or becomes something else. So they're not permanent arrangements. Ank, you look as though you're about to say something.
No, I agree. Actually, we believe that ecosystems are not there for permanent arrangements. It's maybe even more pop-up ecosystems than something for that has to develop. And of course, that differs. It differs very much whether you talk about this there are these 4 types of ecosystems that Camal just mentioned. If you have an internal ecosystem, of course, that will have to stay in any form, right? Whereas if you move to, the value chain ecosystem, it depends very much on the topic at hand. So you need to be flexible in this and you need to move it on. But what I like about what you're again mentioned about the movement, because we believe that if people really enjoyed and experienced the positive impact of ecosystems, they can take this learning further. They can take it further into their daily lives, in their, in the way how they operate. So that's why, we really need to collaborate together as people who are, understand the ecosystem thinking, because we can create this movement together. That will definitely help. And also, if you think about the difference between type 2 and type 3, type 2 is type 2 of innovation, external innovation, was when people said, okay, I want to put my problem at the table and then find solutions for this problem. Whereas we all know that if we just stick to this point, then we don't create the massive changes. So if you think about plastic, the chemical company has to do something. Then there will be producers of actually the plastic that have to do something. The molding companies have to do something. But in the end, the retailer has to make actually agreement to use different forms of materials as well. So you need to bring this ecosystem together. But if we solve this particular issue, new issues pop up and they have to move on. So it creates enormous possibilities if we get it and we then use it and spread it. Hopefully.
Mohammed Nasser makes a point about entrepreneurs, and which you alluded to. And it seems to me what you're saying is that ecosystems bridge the gap between, will have the potential to bridge the gap between startups and larger organizations. Is that what you're saying? Because I think that's an interesting relationship between startups, and always an interesting relationship between startups and bigger corporations, and ecosystems are a way of getting the best of every world, perhaps.
So Steffie, go ahead.
No, I agree, but it's not only about the startup. So it's a way, because you have a mix of what we call solution providers, then it helps to get the connection going. So if it's only, and then of course the design principle, as Ank mentioned, so you start the ecosystem and you start getting the relationships together with the design that you have in mind, and the design is all about collaboration. It helps, of course, it helps the startups, but it will help the scale-ups or universities as well. But in this type of setup, I think there's more equality, and that helps the relationship forward.
And do you think, I mean, you talked about collaboration and the very nature of your organization, collectiveness. I mean, these are great things, but run against the corporate habits and organizational habits of the last 100 years, if not longer. Do you think the appetite for collaboration between organizations and greater openness and collectiveness is actually there?
It's starting. It's so, the type 1 and type 2 type of innovations ecosystems we classified, I think they are pretty settled at this moment. Any companies either experimenting with it or has a high level of maturity reached in that area. When we're talking about value chain, then it becomes very interesting. It's still very, let's say, novel. They're still testing the waters. And it is, it's not that easy to accept that your future might be laying outside what products and services you're offering right now. So let me give you an example. Like, for example, the fertilizer companies in the whole agri-food chain. They must probably think of a future where they might not produce a lot of fertilizer in the future. And they have to think of alternative business model. To accept this, it's already a leapfrog for leadership. And the same applies, for example, for the cement industry, where they probably have to admit that the future of this industry might not be laying in manufacturing and distributing cement. And to acknowledge this and to find ecosystems to find alternative future solutions is a big leap for them. So it's starting, but it's starting slowly.
Yeah, but I think it's interesting to see some people get it, and they really, and what we are looking for is people with vision and guts who get it and understand that we need to do the things together. And the issues at hand are enormous. Mm-hmm. You can read every sustainability report or whatever on climate and more. So the need for collaboration is great. And there are people with vision and guts out there who know that this is the way. So let's just create this movement together.
Miner in Belgium makes a point, a question. It says 42 Collective seems to act as an orchestrator, but how can you consistently ensure the required critical mass and diversity of complementers to help the ecosystem succeed? So I suppose if you're the orchestrator, I suppose the question is, how can you ensure that the violinists are up to the job?
Ank, are you happy to answer that question?
Well, it has to do with the design as well, and also with so we mentioned a couple of aspects in the critical design aspects. One aspect that we didn't really mention was really how we reach out to the world and actually try to invite organizations to come in. And this builds up together. So if you invite really people to collaborate, then you get other type of results and other type of solutions. So we always say the more solutions there are, the better. You also get these brilliant solutions to it. So this is all a matter of design. We're very happy to talk about this again.
Maybe also something else to mention on this one. So, and this might be a little bit wordsmithing, but we are not exactly the orchestrators. So we don't like to be in the center of an ecosystem. We're definitely looking for other parties that take the lead. But we do always look for somebody who has the vision and the guts to start up an ecosystem and start to orchestrate it. And then we are usually the party who, make sure that it all happens. Yeah.
Haneen asked, "What's the fourth ecosystem?" And it was society. Haneen was the final one. Can you talk me through? I like the Amazon River analogy. Can you talk me through it again? Because it's quite a lot to take in with the breakthrough runs, deals, deal flow. Can you talk me through it again?
Yeah, and I think this is actually quite important in our approach. So well spotted. So with ecosystems, and then again you go to like the previous sessions. There's been a lot of reference to ecosystems being an Amazon, an area where a lot of species meet each other, and then new species are originating, and it's a bit uncontrolled, and therefore it's very lively. And then, like all these ecosystems, you need some kind of a source that brings in life. And in this case, the analogy goes with the Amazon River. Now, if we translate that analogy to ecosystems, so one of the observations we usually have with this ecosystem is that there is energy, life coming in from a number of people who are convinced that there is a common problem to be solved. And that is actually the energy that comes into an ecosystem. But in order to sustain it, you need to have something that fluids forever. And then the analogy with a river pops up. And what we see in the ecosystems that we have built in the past is that if you continuously have something of a breakthrough run, where you start identifying first the problem which the ecosystem is struggling with and really are looking for challenges with, and then as a means trying to attract all kind of new solutions or different point of views, you actually create a very flow of fresh ideas continuously in an ecosystem. And of course, that attracts a lot of stakeholders. That, of course, is also very attractive for the corporates, as they might be seeing some new solutions, insights flowing into their ecosystem. So therefore, we have said that every ecosystem actually need something of a breakthrough river running through it in order to make sure it stays alive. And just organizing events is one way. Definitely, sharing of the ideas is definitely fruitful. But corporates also need to come up with tangible solutions at a certain stage. Like, what are you really going to do in order to solve this one? And then these breakthrough ones are sort of an ideal, way to do it. Yeah. I hope I clarified myself clearly.
Yes, thank you, Camal. So it's that combination of the movement and the deals which are the kind of the rigor and the shared agreement. It's that combination is what gives the ecosystem the power.
Yeah.
We're running out of time, but 42 Collective. Why is it called 42 Collective? You didn't answer that question. Please explain to the audience.
It's in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, because 42 is the answer to everything. And collectively, we need to find the answer to everything. So it's as simple as that. So you can join us, because we always need more answers.
Yeah. The answer to anything would be a start, I guess. And where can people find out more about the 42 Collective?
So we have a website for sure, where you can find our contact information. The website is very simple, 42collective.com. I think that's the main point of entry, and then we can take it from there.
Okay. One final question. Let's throw this one in from Greg Bernarda, who loves your work. And he says, in the case of societal ecosystems, which is your fourth type, who do you think are best suited for holding these kinds of complex transformations? Governments, independent platforms, and new organizations? Or a combination of those things?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think here we are still in the, let's say, the experimental phase. I think they can be all of the above. Yet if you are realistic, especially on some of these societal issues, you will see that much more the governmental type of organizations usually take the lead in initiating these type of ecosystems, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I guess surely the answer is that ecosystems must involve all of these.
Yeah,
different organizations in different situations.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time, Ank, Camal, and Steffie. That was an introduction to the brilliant work of 42 Collective. Check them out to learn more, and their ideas are featured in the new Business Ecosystem Alliance ebook, which will be published later this week. Thank you for joining us from throughout the world this morning. Our next session will be on October the 12th, when we'll be joined by Kayan Krippendorf and chief strategy officers from a number of American organizations discussing their take on ecosystems. Thank you very much.